I feel that the legacy, the great legacy of a church is not the people that they can see, it's the people that they can send. And my first responsibility is not only feeding the flock, but also is making disciples, investing in them, giving them the opportunities to develop. When they're ready, send out.
Family, multiplication, restoration. I'm Dhati Lewis. Join me, Noah Oldham and Heiden Radner, as we come to you from Atlanta, St. Louis, and Las Vegas, as we seek to add value to your church planting journey. We'll have real-time, authentic conversations that are relevant to the life of the church planter and pastor. Join us as we hear from leaders of this movement from across North America and discover what it really takes to plant churches everywhere for everyone.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us for another episode of the We Are Send Network podcast. My name is Noah Oldham, the lead pastor of August Gate in St. Louis, joined as always by Heiden Ratner, the senior pastor of Walk Church in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Dhati Lewis, the lead pastor of Blueprint in Atlanta, Georgia. We're joined today by another special guest, our man, the regional director down in Puerto Rico, Félix Cabrera. Welcome, brothers. Good to see you guys.
What's up? What's up?
We are in the room for the first time, post-pandemic, all at the same time. We're actually live for SBC 21 and Send Conference.
So good.
Man, it's gonna be good. Today is an awesome opportunity for us to highlight the diversity of the Send Network. I recently read a statistic that since 2010, that 60% of the churches planted in Send Network are non-Anglo.
Come on.
So we are diversifying all the time. And one of the largest demographics we see in that diversity is our Spanish-speaking community. Dhati, I know this has been on your heart for a while. Man, let us know what's going on. Where are things happening here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you even said what you said. The reality is that in America, basically in North America, they said by the year 2042, America will be a majority minority, multi-ethnic country, right? We're already serving the most diverse country in the world, you know, and one of my hearts and my goals was that I would want to have missionaries that reflect the diversity in North America, you know, and so that's really why I'm excited to bring in Félix, because not only is he a regional director, he is also the senior director of Send Network Español.
Okay.
Send Network Español it is really a way for us to simplify, to reaching a clear and simple process to reaching Hispanics, you know, in Spanish-speaking communities all throughout North America.
Wow.
You know, and it's also a way, because there's so many different ways, you know, we serve 8 different regions all throughout, whether that's Canada, North America, you know, and Puerto Rico. And there's literally that many different types of ways, I mean, if you're trying to plant a Spanish-speaking church, we wanted to clarify that and bring a clear and simple strategy in order to do that. And Félix is basically going to be championing that. He's going to be leading that charge. Yeah. And so I'm really excited to talk to you, Félix, about that. You know, just first to share your heart. You know, just a little bit about kind of how you started, you know, specifically in this church planting journey, you know, in North America.
Well, in 2010, we moved from Puerto Rico to Oklahoma, and we started a Hispanic church in Anglo Church, in Quail Spring Baptist Church, Pastor Hans Dilbeck. And 2 years later, because of the context in Oklahoma, a growing Hispanic community moving to the north side of Oklahoma City, we start helping other Anglo churches to plant Hispanic churches. And a year later, North American Mission Board contact us and ask if we can help with the plan to support in the Send cities with plant Hispanic or Spanish-speaking churches, because the first generation of Hispanics was moving to the biggest cities in the States. And since 2012 to 2018, we helped to plant over 40 Spanish-speaking churches in North America. Wow. And after Hurricane Maria came to the island, we accepted the call to move to Puerto Rico to plant Iglesia Bautista Ciudad de Dios in San Juan, in the capital of the island. And from Ciudad de Dios, start a residency, a church planting residency. And since 2019 to as today, we help start other 7 churches in Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, and I don't want us to quickly jump over that, because the idea of being able, you've been there for how many years?
8 years.
8 years, and you've planted 7 churches already.
In Puerto Rico,
In Puerto Rico.
In Puerto Rico, it's only 2 years and a half, and we start 7 churches.
Okay, yeah, so that's what I was saying, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying, like, so we're planting, and a lot of that is very intentional. I mean, we'll talk about a little bit later about just the disciple-making process, the residency, all that stuff that you're very intentional. I know your heart in order to do that. But, as we're thinking about specifically Spanish-speaking churches and planting specifically Spanish-speaking churches, there's so many different philosophies, so many different ways to go about doing that. I've heard people from raising up and sending them out separately. I've heard people trying to integrate, Spanish-speakings and have translations. I've heard like different service times. So talk to us about some of the different models that you've seen out there when it comes for English speakers to planting Spanish-speaking congregations.
Sure.
How they've done it and just kind of even what you prefer.
Well, since 2010, I think in the last decade, we saw a movement that probably in the beginning, Anglo churches start Hispanic works, like a Sunday school or Spanish-speaking small groups. Right. And I think it was wise to see the growing, if they are healthy. But because of the increase of Hispanic community moving to the communities, they move from Spanish small groups or Sunday school to a Hispanic ministry. And from the Hispanic ministry, they launch Hispanic churches. Now we are seeing more conscious because of Send Network to plant churches for everyone, everywhere. And we are seeing a movement of churches planting Spanish-speaking churches, not only in the biggest city, because Hispanics are moving everywhere, and not only in the South, in the United States, but we have an increasing, growing Hispanic community in Canada, and we are seeing a movement that we're excited and pumped about this strategy to help churches to reach the Hispanic communities, the Spanish-speaking communities in the cities.
So good. Yeah, I like how you said early on that you guys have a passion for coming alongside specifically Anglo churches or maybe majority culture churches and really helping them see a vision for planting churches, Spanish-speaking context. Could you give maybe just a few more practical examples on how you may come alongside an Anglo church or just a church that doesn't have a Spanish-speaking context? I'm even thinking right now in Las Vegas in the West Coast, we have a large Hispanic population. Even at our church, I'm thinking, man, I need some tools to just start thinking that way. We might not go 0 to 100, but we need to start getting closer to planting another church in a different language. And so maybe give us some tools, some handlebars on how to take some steps there.
I think this is a great question because we can see 2 different models. First is seeing that every pastor and every church can see their community. If it's changing, if you have more brown people that are speaking Spanish in the supermarket, in the restaurant, probably, or in Walmart, you can go to Walmart and spend 15 minutes that you will see who is coming to the community or to the city, and start trying to. My humble suggestion is trying to find a guy that you can invest and he can create or recruit a small core group in Spanish to reach this community. Sometimes we saw churches that are probably in biggest English-speaking community, but they have a heart to reach the Hispanics, and they join us or work with other churches to reach the Hispanic in another side of the city, giving resources, tools, financial help, bringing teams to help them to reach the community, to doing outreach, VBS, evangelism. That are 2 ways, trying to pull your community, but also if your community, you don't have other ethnic group, but you have a heart for your city or your community, join others to reach these Hispanic brothers.
Can I
love that.
piggyback on that? Because, we've been mixing kind of the metaphor in the sense of, on one, we talk about Hispanic communities, and then we also talk about Spanish speaking.
Yeah.
Can we differentiate those for me, the 2 between Hispanic communities and Spanish speaking communities? Because there's the language obviously is a clear differentiation, but talk a little bit about that.
We are 21 Spanish-speaking countries. When you talk about Latinos or Hispanics, we are from 21 different countries, different context, culture, reality. You can put everybody in the same table like they are Mexican. Well, because I'm from Caribbean, we have guys from South America, we have guys from Spain. And when we talk about Hispanics, we're talking from guys from these 21 Spanish-speaking countries. When we talk about Latinos or Spanish-speaking, it's because our first generation. Well, we are Hispanic from first, second, third, fourth, fifth generation. And in probably the third, fourth, fifth generation, they lost the Spanish.
Okay.
They are English-speaking. And we want to reach them with the gospel, but probably it's like a sauce, Hispanic sauce, but in English. But first and second generation, they need the gospel. They want to be a part of the family because this is part of one of our values is family, and they want to worship in their own language, in their heart language, that is Spanish. That's the reason, because sometimes we talk about Hispanics and we talk about Spanish-speaking
That's
churches.
a helpful
That's good.
wisdom right there.
Yeah, culture and language
Exactly.
and how they blend together. What I'm really excited about with Send Network Español is the synergy that can come as you get these leaders together. I've seen in my own experience as a Send City missionary or being on staff at different churches is often you want to reach a population in the community that's not represented in the church. It's that balance of giving power away, giving authority away, and not trying to control it. But I've often seen, majority culture churches, they're trying to ride that balance. They don't give enough power away, and they never really get a whole lot done. Yeah. But I've watched specifically some Spanish-speaking Hispanic leaders that when they are set loose and given responsibility and authority and trust and resources, things explode. And so I'm excited to see that happen as synergy brings all these leaders together from across North America.
And I think that's one of the things that we want to make sure, because that, this year with the Send Network, basically one of the things that we wanted to make sure was taking that first step, because we know that the Hispanic population is going to be the largest minority group in North America.
Wow.
So with it being the largest minority group, one of the first steps that we wanted to take was to translate everything that we have into Spanish, right? But we didn't want to start there. And oftentimes I talked to Felix, I was like, we don't want to just translate, because there's one thing that you can translate and that you still miss the point of what you're trying to do. So we always talk about, no, we want to contextualize everything that we're doing. Talk a little bit, Felix, about the difference between just simply translating and contextualization when it comes to reaching the Spanish-speaking communities.
And I praise the Lord for his heart, because he get it. He understood that it's totally different translate to contextualize. Because sometimes when you copy and paste and you don't adopt and adapt, it's different. Some of the tools, resources, materials that we have in Send Network are great for our Anglo brothers, but in the Spanish-speaking context, church planters and churches are not, don't fit, because the examples, because the context, because the reality, because our challenges. The majority of the Hispanics in North America, they came through the pursuing the American dream. They don't work 8 to 5. They work 25 or 30 hours weekly or daily. It's ridiculous, and when we want to try to reach them, we need to go and talk in their own language and their own values, in their own realities, understanding their challenges, and that's flexibility that you talk in the beginning, that Anglo churches are giving to the Hispanic church planters to reach them, is the flexibility that I receive from the Dhati. It's the freedom to, your people, and see what we are doing and how we can help to put in their own hard language, and that's a blessing. And we're excited about what the Lord do for the last 10 years with Kevin. When Kevin arrived, we saw a movement oriented to reach ethnics. But when the Dhati came aboard, one of the things that he do in the beginning was how we can make this explode, how we can give you authority, flexibility, and that's what we receive in the Send Network Español. But this is what we are encouraging our church planters. because church planters like you know your community and you know how to reach these Spanish-speaking guys. But probably you can do alone. We are better together, and we can do. We are better working to reach our people in their own context, considering their realities and challenges.
Yeah, I remember, I think, hearing Dhati actually share this in the Boulevard cohort, that I think you took some mission trips to Puerto Rico and expanded your global mindset of God. I remember one session you were just saying, like, honestly, like, I can't get Puerto Rico off my heart today. Like, I just want to, I was moved, but you're not moved unless you go.
Yeah.
And maybe even talk a little bit about your experience when you went out there a couple times and just what you saw.
Well, I mean, Felix can't get enough of me. I mean,
Yeah, that's what it is.
Or maybe he get too much of me.
Yeah.
Like every time I'm like, hey, Felix, I'm out here with my family. I'm just, you know, but I think for me, because I was that dude. I was that dude specifically growing, you know, early in my Christian life. You know, it just be like, why go overseas?
Right.
Like, there's so many problems in my own hood.
Yeah.
Like, why do I need to go overseas? And when I took that first mission trip, which actually was to Honduras,
Okay.
you know, and I took that first mission trip to Honduras, and I was just like, my goodness.
That's right.
Like, God is way more bigger than
That's right.
I thought that he was. And, you know, and I saw God being worshiped in, you know, obviously in a different tongue or a different language in so many different ways, but it was just so much more. And it just increased my understanding of God by seeing that taking place. So really God used that. And I literally was at that time, was like, God, I don't know who to pray for. Do I need to be praying for them? Because I was the missionary going to help them. And I was like, but I was being more sanctified, you know, in that process. And I was just like, that was it. And then, and it was from that time I went back and I was like, everybody needs to go. Everybody needs to go. You know, and so that was really kind of my heart, my desire to do it. But I've always felt like one of the beautiful things that we have by being a part of a large, kind of a big tent with the Send Network is the diversity that we have within. But the problem is that we've only, and a lot of times we've only lifted up one kind of model to be the example or the gold star. But what I love is that we see brothers like Felix and others all around lifting them up. And so not just learning, okay, how do we reach Hispanics? No, but man, tell us about disciple making, because what you're talking about in 2.5 years, 7 churches, like that's not a Spanish thing. Like, no, like tell us about your disciple making model. So I would love to hear kind of more about just like your heart for discipleship, your heart, you know, the residency, you know, and what you've been doing with that.
I feel that the legacy, the great legacy of a church is not the people that they can see, it's the people that they can send. And my first responsibility is not only feeding the flock, but also is making disciples, investing in them, giving them the opportunities to develop. When they're ready, send out. And I remember that when you came to Puerto Rico the last time, you talked about that, discipleship, and we was, he get it. We know what he's talking about, because this is part of our DNA. Not only teaching the Bible, but also giving the opportunity that they can teach others, that they can invest in others. We need a Barnabas, a Paul, and a Timothy. This is the model that we are trying to share it not only in our church family, but also with our other church planters, that they can invest in others, and these others invest in others, that we can see movement and momentum in the island, and the Spanish-speaking context, developing others to see the gospel to the end of the world.
Let me ask you this, in terms of your time as a senior pastor, you know, and how you divide your hours up in a week, you know, in terms of, you know, you talk about the Barnabas, the Timothys, you know, and then the general congregation. How do you divide up your week, just in large buckets, like in terms of how you spend your time, you know, in shepherding the flock?
I have 4 hats. I'm not probably the best model. I have 4 administrative assistants, and this is different. But I think that, again, one of my goal in my agenda during the week is spending time with other men, that we can spend time in the praying, reading the Bible, reading a book, but also that they can come with me and doing ministry with me. That they can visit people, minister others, be part of the counseling, reaching, evangelism, because after a year, that's what they will do. Yeah. And I want to give the orthodoxy, but I want to give the orthopraxis, an environment that they can combine these two things. For this reason, this is one of my biggest assignment during the week in my agenda.
Yeah,
Man.
Before we close, I do want to speak to you guys for a minute because, man, I love this brother. And like I said, we're partners in the gospel. Our church try to do more things in Puerto Rico. Yeah. But what I love about his heart is his desire to make disciples, and his desire to seeing that. And so this is why if you are Spanish or desiring to plant a church in a Spanish-speaking context, or if you are a church planter and just wanting to reach the Spanish-speaking congregation, or you just want to learn about discipleship and disciple making, you want to check out my man here. He's a great brother in the Lord and really gets it. But if you do want to plant specifically of Spanish-speaking churches, Send Network Español. We want to make it really clear, really simple for anybody who has that desire to do that. And so we're really excited to do that.
Man, great days ahead. Great days ahead. Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of the We Are Send Network podcast. As always, if you want more information about planting with the Send Network, you can text the words Send Network to 888-123. That's 888-123 Send Network. Even to get information about Send Network Español, you can check us out at sendnetwork.com. And until next time, we are Send Network.
You have been listening to We Are Send Network, a resource of the North American Mission Movement. For more information about today's podcast and other relevant resources, visit sendnetwork.com.